Hey guys, second video today. I got some time on my hands. What I want to talk about this time was polling. If you're really into politics, then you know that you're reading the polls. You're looking to see how your candidate's doing. On the Democratic field this year, we've got a huge field of candidates, so everybody's watching to see how their particular favorite's doing. If you're voting Republican, you're looking to see how is the president doing versus the Democrats that are in the running this year. So I want to talk to you all about polling for a minute, just because sometimes when we see something we don't like in a poll, we just automatically want to throw out that stupid term fake news. But what I wanted to help you all with here was do some research for you and give you some stuff that you could look at that would be pretty pretty unbiased. And I used 538.com for my polling information on the polls. They rate them on many different scales, but the one I looked at was their overall rating was at least an A. And number two, did it not have at least a 1% leaning either direction, Democrat or Republican? Okay. So any poll that got, any polling firm that got a B or less, or any polling firm that leaned too far left or right, I threw out and just picked a few. And you all have probably heard me talk before about Real Clear Politics, because they take polls from all over the country and just put them together, and they do this every day. So anything that gets published for the day, they put that on their website under latest polls. And what I'll do is I will comment on this video at the end, the link to the information on the polling firms that came from 538.com, and I will post the link to the Real Clear Politics polls, because I've told you all before, Real Clear Politics takes all the polls and gives you what they call an RCP average, or Real Clear Politics average of everything that's out there. So there was one interesting fact that I found today that really blew me away, and that's what I want to talk about. So at this early in the race, polling isn't so much a big deal when you're looking at how do the Democrat candidates stand up against Trump. It's way too early. I remember voting in 2000, and every year after the Bush v. Gore election, the election cycle kept starting earlier and earlier. So we are like, when this all started talking about candidates for the Democrats this time, it was almost 2 years out. I mean, it's nuts. It's almost like our elections are a full-time thing nowadays. But I want to let y'all know, I just found four that I feel like you can really, really trust, because they got graded an A, and they have such a small leaning to the left or to the right that they don't appear biased. So the two that lean Republican are Marist College and the National Journal. Marist is a 0.5% Republican, which is very low, and 0.2% Republican. On the Democratic side, we've got Quinnipiac, who is a 0.1% Democratic leaning. And this one blew my mind. Fox News, in conjunction with Shaw and Company, 0.6% Democrat. And I thought anything with the word Fox in it would never lean blue, but they do. So now I wanted to talk about a couple of the polls that are up right now. So I'm kind of reading on another screen here. But Friday, May 17th, Fox did a poll, and it kind of caught me off guard. For the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination, that one didn't. Biden plus 18. It was Biden 35, Sanders 17, Warren 9, Kamala Harris 5, and Pete Buttigieg 6. But then they did some general election polling as well. So Trump versus different Democratic contenders this year. So nationally, Trump versus Biden, Biden plus 11. Trump versus Sanders, Sanders plus 5. Trump versus Warren, Warren plus 2. Trump versus Kamala Harris came out tied. And then Trump versus Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Trump plus 1. On that same day, Gallup did a poll with a 10% presidential job approval rating as disapprove, plus 10 to disapprove. On Monday, Rasmussen did a national direction of the country, came out plus 15 wrong track. And then today, no, not today, that was way back, sorry. The most recent things we have are ones that I don't really trust except for Quinnipiac, and they haven't put anything out recently. But it gives you an idea. And I did one on trade earlier, and the one thing I wanted to caution, because I feel like sometimes my Trump supporting friends can't ever find a reason to say anything negative about the guy. I can name you some negatives from Barack Obama that when he was in office that I voted for and didn't get. I didn't get him to admit that he was okay with gay marriage until his second term in office. That frustrated me. He never federally legalized marijuana, which I thought he should have done. So, I can look at a Democratic president or nominee and as a Democrat disagree with him. For example, there's some talk right now on if you commit a felony, you lose your voting privileges. And in some states, after you serve your term, you get them back. In other states, you don't. Recently, Bernie Sanders said on a CNN town hall that he thought that even while in prison, that people should still have the right to vote. I am a Democrat, just like Sanders. I'm also a socialist Democrat like Sanders. However, I disagree there. I think once you've completed your term and we are restoring you whole as a citizen, then at that point you should get your voting rights back. But while you are in prison serving a sentence and a punishment for committing a crime deemed to be a felony, I think losing some rights is normal, and losing the right to vote is one of them. I mean, you've lost the right to go to the fucking movies. You've lost the right to leave the prison. So losing the right to vote, for me, should be off the table while you're serving your sentence. But what I really wanted some of you on the right who are friends of mine to think about is maybe stepping up and giving your boy some criticisms. We talked about the trade war this morning. If this thing gets ugly enough that it causes a pullback in the market, maybe even a minor recession, then that is something he does not want to go into 2020 having to run on. Because whoever comes out of the Democratic field is going to hang that on him, because he's the one in office, and he can sign the tariffs into law around Congress. So even though the Democrats and Republicans split the two houses of Congress, we can easily say the tariffs weren't our decision. So I think it would be helpful to have some of you on the right kind of get this guy back on track a little bit. And I don't mean to knock just you all, because I've said before, the Bernie fanatics are just as fanatic. They're just way over here on the left. And then the Trump fanatics are way over here on the right. And both, to me, need a dose of reality sometimes to kind of pull us back towards the middle a little bit where we can get things done. When you say you're going to repeal Obamacare on day one, and when you say you're going to start constructing a wall on the entire Mexico border on day one, those things are just so outlandish, and they obviously haven't even happened. But it's just as outlandish as Bernie saying, well, when I get in there, we're going to have free college for everybody and stuff like that. Those things are years and years long processes to even get anywhere near what you want. So it'd be helpful to come back to the middle. But I'll post for you all, and that way when you see polls online, you can go over to this 538.com page and look at how that pollster is rated. Some of the shittiest ones that exist, pretty sad here, but if we go to these pollster ratings, if we're looking at how biased they are, TCJ Research is 4.5% biased towards Republicans. And then on the other end of the scale, we would have SurveyMonkey being 4.9% to Democrats, Nielsen Brothers being 2.8% to Democrats. So those polls are going to be skewed, I feel like, to give us data we want to hear if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican. So the best thing to do, I'll put the link in there, and then if you start visiting Real Clear Politics every day, there's some of those polls you can just ignore, because they're obviously going out and polling people who they want to give them a certain answer. So real quick thing on polling, I'll put the links up here as a comment when I'm done. And that's it for today. Appreciate y'all very much. See you later. Bye-bye.